Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being a small group today. I'll start with what's written here. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Center of Love. Whether this is your first time here or you've been walking with us for a while, we're really glad to have you that you're here. The Center of Love exists as a gathering place for people who are curious, reflective, and open, people who sense that there's something deeper moving within life, even if we don't all have the same language for it. We're not here to tell anyone what to believe. We don't offer dogma, fixed answers, or a single path that you must follow. Instead, we gather in the spirit of curiosity and openness, drawing wisdom from many traditions, cultures, and disciplines, and holding them with humility and care. One of our core understanding at the Center of Love is that we are all teachers and we are all students. Each of us arrives with a unique lived experience, and when we listen deeply to ourselves and to another, something meaningful emerges between us. So today isn't about being convinced of anything. It's about exploration, reflection, and creating a little space to ask honest questions together. And that brings us to the topic of today's talk. Many of us, if asked, would probably describe ourselves as spiritual. It's a word that feels familiar, even comforting. It suggests depth, intention, awareness, something more than just getting through life and the motions of life. But if we slow down for a moment, and really look at the word, something interesting happens. When we say spiritual, what does that actually mean? For some people, spirituality is defined as a certain tools or symbols, tarot cards, astrology, crystals, energy work. For others, it requires something supernatural, past life experiences, visions, auras, access to hidden realms, or cosmic knowledge. For some, spirituality is primary ethical or behavioral, what you eat, what you don't consume, what practices you follow, and what habits you avoid. For others, it's defined by discipline, meditation, prayer, ritual, or adherence to a particular spiritual lifestyle. And none of these are wrong. But taken together, they reveal something important. The word spiritual has become incredibly broad. So broad that two people can claim it while meaning completely, entirely different things. Today, Ollie encouraged to ask whether or not we are spiritual, but what we actually mean when we say we are. Are we gathering? Are we pointing? What are we pointing to? How does it shape our thoughts, words, and deeds? More importantly, how can we be clearer on this subject, first with ourselves and with others? So, just as this was written for me because I was texted yesterday night to ask if I would do this. So if Ollie texts you late on a Saturday night, that usually means he wants you to do something. Here. So, so we all know Ollie. Ollie is a great person. He has helped start this organization and bring us all together to be spiritual and to grow and learn from each other. And again, if he texts you on Saturday night. So anyway, with this, I invite Ollie up to the pulpit.
Outstanding work. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you. You're a good sport. I wasn't expecting you to say yes, so it was a pleasant surprise. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Center of Love, located at the corner of here and now, which means anywhere you are is the Center of Love. Today, Barbara did a fine job of introducing our topic. It's a topic that has been plaguing me for months. perhaps even a couple of years. And before I get into it, I have to give you some context. My journey has been driven by questions, but not just any kind of questions, a very specific kind, what they call Socratic questioning, okay, after the great philosopher Socrates. And what these questions do is they attempt to get to the underlying essence of a thing, right? Whereas somebody might say, does God exist? Socrates would say, what is God? Before you start looking for something, it's important to identify it accurately. And so my spiritual journey began when I had an experience that revealed to me that everything I thought I knew about everything was wrong. And instead of making me feel hopeless and embarrassed, it actually excited me. Because now all of a sudden, it was up to me to define things like happiness, truth, and goodness. And so one question that I started with was, what is happiness? That was the very first question that started me on this quest. And it led to more questions. And by the way, I haven't found any answers. What I have developed are theories. And like any good scientist, these theories are always open to revision. And they're always being tested in the laboratory of everyday life. And so one question led to another and led to another. And eventually I came to this question, which is the subject of today's talk, which is, what does it mean to be spiritual? Now, believe it or not, all of you here have helped me with this question. And in fact, I think it might be this community that started to prompt me to ask the question in the first place. Because as Barbara stated in the introduction, I've spoken to hundreds of people who identify as spiritual. And what I found was that everyone defined spirituality differently. Big shocker. If you ask 100 people, what does it mean to be spiritual? You will get 100 different answers. And it's not my place to gatekeep or to say, this is spiritual and this is not. And so as I've sat in these circles with all of you and in many different conversations outside of this community, the way that I reconciled all of these different things being spiritual is to regard spirituality as a spectrum. One end of the spectrum, you have very grounded, practical, spiritual things. And then at the other end, you have more supernatural, extraordinary, out there type of stuff. But it's all part of the spectrum, in my humble opinion. And so I think what I'm really getting at here is not a definition of spiritual, because it's not my place to offer such a definition. What I'm trying to do is point out the limitations of the word. When I tell you that I am spiritual, what does that tell you about me? That I'm on the spectrum. Do I read tarot cards? Do I meditate every day? Am I a vegetarian? Do I do psychedelics? No one knows, because the word spiritual is extremely broad. And that, my friends, is the limitation of the word. It's not a bad word, it's a good word, but it's like me telling you that I am political. Cool. You're into politics? You're politically active? Where do you stand on the political spectrum? Are you a libertarian? A classical liberal? An anarcho-capitalist? A socialist? These are all political ideologies, right? So if I tell you I'm political, it doesn't tell you where I stand. It just tells you that I'm on the spectrum. And so today, again, I don't want to define spirituality. I don't want to necessarily even have a conversation about what it means to be spiritual. What I'm trying to do is invite you all to be more precise with yourselves first, obviously, because you have to understand for yourself what it is that you believe, your personal brand of spirituality. And then once you get more secure and clear with yourself, it's easier to have conversations with others and to be more precise with them, so that when you tell them your way, they know what it is. It's not broad, it's not vague, it's not ambiguous. And of course, this is important because we are a spiritual community. So it's probably a good idea that each of us has a clear concept of what that means for you and you and you and you. So without getting too deep into the actual word spiritual or spirit, I do want to touch on a few really little quirky details because I did a little bit of research. So the etymology of the word spirit, etymology, the root meaning of it, the origins of the word, it comes from the Latin spiritus, which means breath. Or more specifically, the animating breath, the breath that animates the body, the vital force, the life energy. That's the original root meaning of the word spirit. And so if we just drill down to that, a spiritual person is literally one who breathes. So therefore, we are all spiritual, my friends. Everybody on this planet is spiritual, whether they know it or not. But as I said, I don't want to get too deep into the meaning of spiritual or spirit. I think that is a worthwhile topic, and it's one that maybe we can discuss in the future. But for now, today, as we begin the new year, this is all about the invitation to be more precise, to overcome the limitations of the word spiritual, which is so wide you can't get around it. As George Clinton and the Funk Mothership once famously said in one of their great songs, so wide you can't get around it, so low you can't get under it. So let's overcome the limitations of this word and let's be more precise. Instead of saying I'm political, say I am a libertarian, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a whatever, right? But in the spiritual sense. So as I'm inviting you to do this, I understand that it is my role as the person who's putting out the invitation to lead by example. And so today, instead of telling you that I am spiritual, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal way of being spiritual. And luckily for me, there's actually a label that applies very well to my belief system and my way of being and operating in the world. Can anybody guess, just out of curiosity or for fun? Anybody know what that label might be? No, you can't.
Buddhist.
Buddhist, okay. Anybody else? Wow, that's good. See how limited the word spiritual is? Nobody knows what I believe. It's beautiful. I'm spiritual. What do you believe? So I will tell you, and then I'm going to invite you all after our meditation to share your own precise, if you have it, definition of your brand of spirituality. And if there's a label for it, great. And if there isn't, then you can just articulate it in your own words. All right, so the label that best describes my way, after 13 years of studying and experimenting, is mysticism, which would make me a mystic. Now, what does that mean? Well, the label, the word, once again, the etymology of the word comes from the Greek mysterion, which is, of course, mystery. So a mystic is someone that is involved with some kind of mystery. A mystic is one who has experienced the mystery or who knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that this mystery exists and that it is possible to come into direct contact with this mystery. Theologians talk about the divine, priests mediate the divine, but the mystic encounters the divine face to face and heart to heart. My favorite part about mysticism is that it is a universal path that arises and can be found in all major faith traditions. There are Christian mystics, there are Jewish mystics, there are Islamic mystics, there are Hindu mystics. And yes, there are even mystics who arise out of no tradition, which is my origin. I wasn't part of a religion, I wasn't practicing, and by some lucky stroke, got to experience the mystery firsthand, and that's what launched me on my search. Now, just to back up what I'm saying about the universality of mysticism, I'm going to share a few quotes with you. The first one from Meister Eckhart, who is a Christian mystic from Germany, Middle Ages at some point. And he says, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." You're looking, and it's looking back. It's the same eye. Ooh, that's union, baby. Next, we've got Rumi, who again came through the Islamic tradition. He says, "I looked in my heart. I saw him. He was nowhere else." And then, last but not least, from the Hindu tradition, we have Ramana Maharshi. He says, "The seer and the seen are one. There is no seer apart from the seen." Sounds like Meister Eckhart and Rumi all over again, doesn't it? Different timelines, different cultures, different traditions, all saying the same thing. Everywhere you look, in every tradition, all the scriptures that you read, whether it's the Upanishads in India, whether it's the Tao Te Ching in China, they all point to this mystery. Lao Tzu calls it the Tao. The Christians call it the Lord or the Father, but it's all the same. So it would appear that the genuine and humble study of scripture and the disciplined engagement with spiritual practices leads to the mystery, regardless of the particular scriptures or practices that the individual is engaged in, right? I'm sure Ramana Maharshi's practice was very different from Rumi's and very different from Meister Eckhart's. Yet when they followed those traditions to their destination, they all arrived at the same place, the mysterious one. And so I'm pretty amazed by that. And I was amazed every step of the way as I discovered these facts in my journey. And I didn't adopt the label of mystic so much as discover that it was my calling, that it was my path. It's not something that I converted to. I arrived at these experiences and conclusions. And then when I went out and I researched and read, what I found was that Rumi was speaking my language. Ramana Maharshi was speaking my language. It was a moment of recognition when I read these words. It was like, I'm not the only one. There are other crazies out there like me, and they've been around all along. This was very heartening for me because at the time I didn't know that this was even something that existed. And so it was very comforting to know that I wasn't alone. Finally, the mystic who has touched the mystery, whether by dipping a toe in or diving in head first, understands at last that the nature of the mystery is pure love, which is why mystics are always messengers of love. Jesus, Hafiz, Teresa of Avila, their souls burned with divine love. They referred to God as the beloved, right? This was the nature of their relationship to the divine. It was through love. And so, as you can tell, this is something that fits very well with me and what I'm doing, right? Okay, but these are all abstractions. These are all just ideas and words. So what does it look like to live ordinary life as a mystic? What does it look like for me? What does the mystic experience? Well, the mystic experiences wonder in a world that trains us to categorize everything. The mystic listens for silence in the middle of all the noise. The mystic uncovers his or her own direct relationship with the one and expands it through consistent, disciplined practice. As I said before, the practice itself is not all that important. What matters is the dedication and the consistency, and that will lead the adherent to the mystery. And of course, it means cultivating connections with all of you, sons of God, S-U-N, sons of God, cultivating connections with all the other humans on this planet. Most importantly, mystics do not withdraw from the world. We don't go into caves and meditate 24 hours a day. We see the world as an expression of the divine mystery, and we seek union with that mystery through the world, not by withdrawing, not by avoiding, not by being holier than thou and rising above. No, we dive into the world, and through the world, we achieve mystical union with the One. Every sunrise becomes a scripture. Every face is a mirror of the beloved. Every challenge is an invitation to remember unity and to relax lovingly into the rhythms of the mystery. Last of all, to live as a mystic is to abandon certainty and to rest not in answers, but in awe.